The heads of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning that rising interest rates are squeezing the world's poorest countries as they struggle with COVID-19 and soaring food prices. World Bank President David Malpass says there is, quote, a huge buildup of debt, especially in the poorest countries. He says that as interest rates rise, debt pressures are mounting on developing countries. This comes as Statistics Canada reports that Canada's annual rate of inflation hit 6.7% in March. One organization that is expressing concern about inflation and public debt is the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. In fact, they're conducting a national debt clock tour. And to tell us a little bit more about this tour, joining us now in studio is Federal Director Franco Terrazzano. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Well, thanks so much for having me here.
So you're here as part of this national debt clock tour, sir. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, we've been on the road. We've been going coast to coast to sound the alarm over runaway deficits and debt. Now, the debt clock is a huge digital display. It's mounted on a massive truck that shows the government's debt going up in real time. So that display is showing the federal government's $1 trillion debt, and the debt is going up by about $1,600 every single second. So we've gone coast to coast. We started in Victoria. We've gone to the East Coast. Right now we're in St. Catharines. And while we've been on the road, the federal debt has gone up by $8 billion.
Some significant numbers over there, sir. Now, this is very timely, but take us back to when this debt tour first began.
Well, this is actually a new debt clock because we've been actually doing a form of the debt clock tour for about 30 years. We started sounding the alarm over runaway deficits and debt back in the early 90s. But this new debt clock, it's brand new. We had to get a new one. And the reason is that the Trudeau government broke the last debt clock. The last clock just didn't have enough digits to show the government's $1 trillion debt. So I guess we underestimated just how good politicians are at spending everyone else's money.
All right, Mr. Terrazzano, what would you say is the goal of this national tour?
Well, we want to sound the alarm. We want to raise awareness about the $1 trillion debt, and we want Canadians to contact their members of parliament and tell them that enough is enough. It's time to put down the government credit card. It's time to pick up some scissors, and it's time to bring Canada back to financial sanity.
You know, in Forum Daily, we usually display the CTF debt clock, and as you said, it just continues to increase. But these numbers might be confusing for Canadians. So how does the federal debt impact individual Canadians?
Well, and what we wanted to do with the debt clock is we also wanted to show what each individual Canadian owes. We wanted to break it down to make it more meaningful. And right now, each Canadian is on the hook for about $30,000 in federal government debt. Now, I don't know about you, but I certainly don't have tens of thousands of dollars just lying around to pay for our politicians' credit card bills. And that's why it's so important for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to stop this deep dive into debt.
And on top of federal debt, we also have provincial public debt. So what's the state of that across the country, sir?
Well, it's not good for provinces. And in some provinces, I just said, it's about $30,000 of federal debt per person. But you could even add another $30,000 on top of that, depending on what province you live in. And, you know, we have been talking to so many Canadians coast to coast, and we've been asking them why they are worried about the $1 trillion federal debt problem. And here's what Canadians told us. They said that it's not fair to continue to pile on more debt onto their kids and grandkids. They said that politicians have been spending too much money for too long, that higher debt today can mean higher taxes tomorrow, that more debt means more money wasted on interest charges, and that inflation could keep getting worse if this debt continues to run wild.
Clear that Canadians are concerned, sir. Yeah. So let's talk about some solutions. What is the CTF proposing here?
Well, it's time for the government to stop the clock, and that means they need a plan to balance the budget. And we presented our 75-page budget plan to the Finance Committee, and all the government would have to do to balance the budget is to bring spending back to pre-pandemic levels. And this is why it's so important. Before the pandemic, in 2018, the Trudeau government was spending more than the federal government did during any single year during World War II. So with overspending like that, finding savings in every area of the budget should be like finding water in the ocean.
All right, sir, just under a minute left here, but where can our Canadian viewers go to learn more about the National Debt Clock Tour?
Well, two places. You can go to taxpayer.com, as always, check out our newsroom, check out our petitions, or go over to debtclock.ca to see those numbers ticking up.
All right, definitely have to keep an eye on that, sir. Thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
It was my pleasure to be here.